So I love this time of the year because every year, around this time, Pastor Nimesh and I, we get to highlight one gospel in the Bible, and we try to kind of go through the stories and lessons in it, and take it all the way to Pentecost. And we love to go diving into the Word. So last year we did Matthew, and this year we are unraveling the Gospel of Mark. Now, if you have never been to church and you're new to church, and you're kind of going, well, why did Jesus die 4 times and rise 4 times? Well, he didn't do that. It was 4 gospels, 4 different perspectives of the same truth recorded by people who witnessed it. So that's what these gospels are. Now, maybe you're confused. You're like, I don't get it. It's like selfies. It's like taking selfies in different angles. No matter how you take it, you go stand in front of that mirror, it's going to tell you the truth. If you're plumpy, you're plumpy. You got pimples, you got pimples. There's nothing else that can shake the truth. It is the honest truth. Because many views exist, but the one truth remains. There is only one truth. Who we are, what we are called to do, and what we have access to never changes because of the one and only definition of truth, which is Jesus Christ. John 14:6 tells us he is the way, the truth, and the... Yes, I got some people in the house. All right, good. All right, so last month when I was in India, I wanted to share something that I experienced there. So God gives me visions and dreams. And when I first landed there, I think it was the second night, I was jet lagged, okay? You don't mess with Pastor Wee when she's jet lagged, all right? I'm just too sleepy. In fact, I was so sleepy, I was dreaming about me sleeping, okay? It was just ridiculously jet lagged. Have you ever been there where you're so sleep deprived, you're like actually dreaming about sleeping? Yes, I have a lot of people going, well, I was sleeping and God gave me this vision. This demon came into the room and it was huge. And it came into the room and it started tapping me like a couple of times. And I looked up and I was like, dude, I am sleeping. I got no time for you. I'm going to bed. So I went back to bed. And then again, it woke me up, tapped me again. And then I looked up and said, I am just tired. I don't got time for you. And I went back to bed. So this happened 3 times. And then I woke up the next morning completely confused, like, what was that? What was going on? And then I kept praying about it. I worshiped, I prayed, I did everything I could during that week. And then the last, at the end of the week, God gave me another vision. Now, this time I was there and I saw the demon going in and attacking children. It was abusing children. It was abusing couples. It was beating down couples and beating down marriages, whispering negative things. And it was, people were scarred. And you can see the emotional tear. And in the generations, I could see generations being affected. And out of that generation, I even saw Gianna in there. Now, I'm a mama bear. You mess with my child, you mess with me. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, not my kids, not my kids. And I don't know, I'm not a wimp. But in this dream, I was a wimp. Now, I was there, I was like, please leave my children alone. And the demon just laughed at my face. And out of the grace of God, I remembered that I have access to this amazing power. The amazing, powerful name of Jesus Christ. So I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, get your hands off my people, of the children, of the marriages. Get your hands off. And I could just see the life taken out of that demon, and it just went away. There is so much power in the name of Jesus Christ. It is a fierce and powerful name. You see, God has given us so much power through these fragile papers. Let me tell you something today, church. God uses fierce words on fragile papers to wake us up. This is not just a mild suggestion. It's not just a soft encouragement, but it is a call to arms, because there is an enemy who hates us, and he is real. He does not want to come. He is real, and he wants to come and steal and kill and attack. I'm telling you, there's something going on this morning. Make no mistake. You are on the front lines. The enemy is coming after your family. It's coming after your peace. It is coming after your life. And the enemy is coming and coming and coming. And so often we're asleep and lethargic and spiritually unaware, not wanting visions or not wanting to hear from God because we're just too tired, too stressed. And I don't have time to compress. But we are so stressed out that we go, you know what? I don't have time for this. I will just rather live with this. Whoa, Pastor V, you need to tone it down. I don't know. Why, did you have so much coffee, Pastor V? Can you just tone it down? No, I can't, because God's lit a fire inside of my heart. Because let me tell you, there is an open war against our generation and the generations to come. And we need to rise up. Let me give you a little bit of things that are happening here, which I researched, which just made my blood boil. Children are being abducted in this area, running away. In 2023, Virginia saw 2,463 drug overdose deaths. In 2024, there were 33,847 completed reports of child abuse and neglect. But they're saying there's an estimation of 53,440 children. Among them, 854 were substance-exposed infants. A report by the Community Foundation of Northern Virginia highlighted that 37% of our high school students in our region is suffering from clinical levels of depression or anxiety. Even more alarming, the same report revealed that 6% of Loudoun youth. Now you're probably like, 6%. That is 3,000 young people who are in Loudoun County that are willing to seriously consider taking their own lives. And if that's not enough, Loudoun County has been seeing an uptick in the emergency rooms because it has an alarming amount of people who tried suicide that have been coming in through. 2021 State of Youth report pointed out to a surge in vaping. Kids are vaping, and there's more stores of vaping being normalized. This is happening here. I'm only talking about Loudoun County. I don't know how much more that the enemy has to come closer for you to wake up and realize what is really going on. There is an enemy, and he's coming, and he's attacking. But here's the good news, church. We are not left hopeless. We have Jesus Christ. And when he's in our midst, we have everything we need. He has anointed us, and through him, we have access to power, which we need to start wielding. Now, we're going to head to Mark 9, verses 14 to 29. Now, this passage is going to be, you can go ahead and get there, but I'm going to give you a couple of intros to it. Now, this passage has been given and recorded 3 times in the Bible itself. We find it in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And so if it's being repeated 3 times, you know God's serious about it. There's something there that he wants us to take. And out of the 3 ways that it was written, I liked Mark's because he's so detail-oriented. And he also was mentored by my Bible boyfriend, who's Peter. I like dead guys. Okay. And he is just so good with details. And he gives an amazing detail of how we can apply this into the battles that we face daily. Now, I'm going to give you a quick context of what's happening here. So over 2 years, the disciples has been with Jesus by this time. They had witnessed him deal with difficult situations, arguments. They had seen him do many miracles. Can somebody name some miracles that they might have witnessed? Like deaf ears being open. Any other miracles? Blind eyes. Anything else? Yes, raising the dead. And so there's all these physical, they've just been seeing all of these miracles, and they witnessed it. And they had Jesus physically with them. They were walking by sight, not by faith. See, at least not yet. Because in just a few more months from this story that we're going to read, Jesus would die and rise again and ascend into heaven. And they would have to face life and its battles and the demons and all the suffering without Jesus. But they're going to have to be equipped for the battle that's ahead. So when you read the Word of God, you will get to know about these disciples, and if you really know that they're really not that bright. I mean, they had a lot of problems with their faith. They had very flimsy faith. And so if you go to the chapters in 8, the previous chapter, verse 14 to 21, Jesus actually tells them, do you see or understand? Like, do you not get it? Do you have it? Do you even have a hard heart? Having eyes, do you not see? Having ears, do you not hear? Do you not remember? And then in verse 21, do you not understand? He is like, dude, get the picture. But these disciples are not able to get it. The constant issue with them was no matter what he did, no matter what he said, they had a hard time grasping it because they were definitely a work in progress, just like us. So in Mark 9, verses 14 to 21, we encounter a dramatic scene in the New Testament. It's a story of a demon possession of a boy who was filled with an unclean spirit. And let me tell you, this is not just something that happens in the biblical times. I don't want you to think this happens then. It's a reality today, just like I had explained the results, how the enemy is attacking. Demons are active in the world, doing the work of Satan. They've been here since the fall of man. The difference in our culture right now is that they don't manifest in the same way. They often covertly operate, disguising themselves as the angel of lights, appearing religious and moral, even sophisticated. In our modern world, they don't want to be recognized for what they are, but they're still at work. Just as I spoke about all those results. But in Jesus' day, however, the demons put on a full-out show. And that's what we're going to look at right now. We're going to be looking at that story about a child who was demon-possessed. And in fact, so many of them, I think in one of the books, in one of the Gospels, they call him lunatic. They thought he was crazy. But he was demon-possessed, and that's what we're going to jump into here. Verse 14. When they is Peter, James, John, and Jesus, came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them, and the teachers of the law arguing with them. So picture this. They are approaching the other 9 apostles. Maybe some of them, there's like a crowd gathering because they know where the disciples are, there's going to be Jesus. So they're gathering around, they're loud, obnoxious. Some of them are like, oh, Jesus is coming. I need to get my lipstick on, get my Mary Kay on. And they are putting their wigs on, fixing it all up, making sure they got their Gucci on, everything they can. And they're coming in to see Jesus in the crowd. And they go, oh, it's just you guys. No Jesus yet. But Jesus was approaching. And then there was scribes there. These guys are the teachers. They were located in the area of Caesarea Philippi. And there would have been Jewish towns there. And so there was a lot of scribes. And these guys weren't followers of Jesus, but they were haters of Jesus. They were just wanting to dispute with Jesus so that they can say, our ways are better than your ways. And they were just there to start problems. So they were there to purposely just discredit him. So they didn't have Jesus, so they started having arguments with the disciples. And I'm in my head, in my mind's eye, I'm actually imagining a playground kind of a whole argument going on. It's like, my teacher is better than your teacher. No, my teacher is better than your teacher. So the scribes are probably like, my teacher is better than yours because they got the best scrolls. And the disciples are like, well, my teacher walks on water. And they're going back and forth, arguing and arguing. And the scribes are ridiculing the disciples. And on top of verse 15, you can read, as soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder. The wonder in Greek is starstruck. It's like somebody saw Taylor Swift. Not a Swiftie fan, but I'm just saying. We have a couple of those in our church. All right, so she's not here. I could have picked on her. All right, so we read verse 16 when Jesus asked, what are you arguing about? What's all this? What are you guys talking to the scribes for? What's going on? And he steps in a wonderful way into that situation because he's their protector. He's their cover. He's their rescuer because they've gotten themselves in a situation they're not able to handle it very well. Well, the scribes don't answer him because they're like, oh no, man, this main teacher is here. I can't argue with him because he always gets it right. So they're quiet. And then and the disciples are even more quieter because they're completely embarrassed because they didn't know what to do because they tried, but nothing happened. Nobody could answer until somebody in the crowd volunteers in verse 17. Teacher, I brought you my son who's possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I came looking for you, Jesus, but then I found only your disciples, and I asked them, and they couldn't even do anything. They couldn't take the demon out of him. And the disciples are probably sitting there, just standing there, embarrassed. Can you see that whole situation in your mind's eye? The demons are spirit beings that take up residence in people. And the demon had caused this boy, at the end of verse 17, you'll find, to be mute, even deaf. And the boy could not hear, and the boy could not speak. And it had nothing to do with some kind of a physical problem. It had to do with the demonic control. The demon held such immense power over this boy. It wasn't just a condition like a genetic disorder or a childhood disease. This was demonic. The symptoms were entirely under the control of the demon. Luke describes how when the demon seized him, the boy suddenly screamed. This aligns with Matthew 17, where the boy is referred to as a lunatic, often describes suffering from sudden intense episodes. The demon repeatedly exerts his power over this boy, screaming, violent. Imagine what this trauma that this boy had been enduring, concussion after concussion with no relief. It's no wonder the symptoms resemble anything like post-traumatic epilepsy, a disorder that can only be happening when you have a brain injury over and over again. It's important to recognize where these symptoms are not due to a malfunctioning of a brain or illnesses, but rather a demonic oppression. The trauma was real, and it was severe. Triggered by convulsions, he rolls around the ground, his teeth are gnashing, he stiffens up. These were all physical symptoms, but they were results of a demonic activity over this boy's body. Demons wield significant power over human bodies. We see this in a way, we're in Hebrews 2:14. I think I have that up there, Hebrews 2:14. It says that Satan has the power of death through all of that is allowed only within God's sovereign permission. Satan and his demons may have great powers, but they are still under God's ultimate authority. In Luke 9:39, the word described about the demon's action is parazo. It means to maul, to crush. This demon was influencing the boy. It was destroying him physically and emotionally. When the boy's father couldn't find Jesus, he turned to his disciples and he's desperate. How desperate would you be? And he's pleading for help. They couldn't do anything. It's remarkable when you consider just a few chapters ago, and you can even find it in Luke 6, how Jesus had given apostles the authority to over unclean spirits, and they had successfully did it. They went and they had been able to kick out demons. The disciples had already been empowered by Jesus to heal and deliver. So why were they unable to help this boy? Why was it that they were entrusted with authority and they still couldn't do it? Why? Well, Jesus answers this in verse 19. You unbelieving generation. Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me. What's the problem? They didn't believe. Unbelieving generation. The words are harsh. Oh, unbelieving generation. And Luke even adds this word. He says, perverted generation. How did you get it so twisted so fast? And I'm thinking as Jesus was saying that, the disciples might have remembered Deuteronomy, where God had said that about the nation of Israel, saying, you crooked generation, you perverse generation, you are sons and daughters who are not faithful, with no trust. And their trust was waning. They had trusted before, but not now. Had they believed before? Yeah, but not here. Jesus was physically always there. Now, in the midst of the battle, they don't realize that they still have access to the power if they would only believe. How often have we failed in situations where we had trusted before, but maybe this time you're going, I don't know if God can do this. In verse 19, he tells them to bring the boy to him. In verse 20, so they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into convulsions. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. When the eyes of Jesus saw that boy and the demons saw who Jesus was, it was like, oh no. And it was trying everything to take the boy out of the situation. The demons know how powerful Jesus is. It is about time that we realize how powerful God is, and we have that access. So in verse 20, it talks about how he's foaming at the mouth, the terrible trauma that this boy was going through, smashing his head to the ground. Every time his head hitting the rocks, hitting the ground. Who knows how many hundreds of concussions the boy had been through. See, I had an experience with concussion myself. See, many years ago, when I was doing youth ministry, my son is sitting over there in the back looking at me like, I remember this, because he witnessed it. So it started, we started with a group of 2, and the youth group started exploding. And we had all these young kids. And when you hang around young kids, you start thinking that you're young too. And you can outdo them in no matter what. And so I was, kind of like, I've got this. Let me show you how this is done. So I had an event that was having a slip and slide, okay? So all the kids were going down. Some of the kids were shy. I was like, let me tell you how to get this done. And I was walking in with strutting down with my style. And I was like, okay, let me show you. So I get myself ready. I'm speeding up and I run. And I go straight into that slip and slide, and I slip, fall backwards, and my head hit the ground so hard that I had a complete concussion. I was blacked out for 2 minutes, and the kids were going, Pastor V, and I'm looking at them and I can't respond. And I was so gone because I was like, I can't even respond. Finally, when I came to, I was not able to communicate. I lost my speech. I lost my memory. I went into so much therapy for a year. I went through cognitive therapy for a year because I had no capability of storing any information in my head. I couldn't communicate right, and God had to put all that back together and come put me where I am right now. And only God can do that. But I'm sitting there going, that was one fall. One fall. Can you imagine the boy smashing his brain against his skull by the power of the demon? And now he's rolling on the floor, foaming in the midst of the crowd, convulsions and concussion after concussion, while this dangerous demonic display is happening, and he's going all about. And the Lord is making sure he's not dead. He's going, bring him to me. And Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? I was like, why would Jesus ask that? I mean, was he going, well, if it happened within the 2 years, I can give you warranty and I can go ahead and fix it right now. I mean, I'm like, why would he do that? Well, it's because God wanted to hear the Father's pain. He wanted to hear the Father articulate and tell the story. He wants to give the Father an opportunity to gather all his pain and thoughts and produce it before God, because this guy wasn't coming to a power, but he's coming to a person. And he wanted to hear him articulate. And because Jesus Christ is a compassionate God. This man wasn't coming to some power. It's an individual. It's the ultimate individual who can love us so much, who cares us so much, to know the intricate parts of when we cry, when we hurt, when we feel helpless, when we feel like, God, my heart is broken, and he's wanting to hear it. What an amazing God that we serve. So often, we don't even pray. We don't want to articulate. We don't want to put things together. We're like, he understands. He sees me every day. So often we go, you know what? I don't have time to pray. Don't fool yourself because you don't have time not to pray. The clock is ticking. Every moment is precious. What you do with your time determines your victory or defeat. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for everything to line up. You pray now. You pray with urgency. You pray like your life depends on it, because it truly does. So verse 22, the man answers, from childhood. This is how long it's been happening. From childhood. It has often thrown him into fires and water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. I was sitting there going, what does he mean by water and fire? Well, in those days, there was a lot of open fires. Fire was used for cooking and heating, and there was water, there was well everywhere. So imagine this father who is running into the fire to save his son, because his son is boiling in the fire, and he's grabbing him and he's pulling him out, getting burnt probably himself. And then he's trying to sit down, and oh no, wait, I hear the sound of gurgling water. Let me run over there. Oh no, my son is trying to drown himself. He's pulling him out of the water. Every occasion of fear and doubt and every struggle this man must have gone through. He's going through. There's no hope. He's running every day in his life going, God, how can I save my son? Is something going to happen today? Have you been there? Have you been there yourself? Were you worried and worried and worried and going, can this happen? Is that going to happen? Is this going to happen? That was a father's life. That was his life. And as he's talking to Jesus, he's starting to get a little glimmer of hope. He's going, maybe Jesus is talking to him and he's got some sympathy. Maybe he can do something. Verse 22, it has often thrown him into fire or water to kill. But if you can do anything. Now, take pity, he says. Now, in Greek, that's the word splaknizama. Okay, splaknizama. Can you say that? Splaknizama. That means come to my aid. Be moved in compassion. And he's saying, help me. Have pity on me. Come to my aid. And he says, if you can. That is the weakest statement of faith, wouldn't you say? Because if you can do something. He's not saying, will you? He's saying, if you can do something. If you had to rephrase that, I would keep it simple, like, since you will, can you? And so Jesus says to him in verse 23, if you can. Now, that's not a question, that's an exclamation. And he's going, are you kidding me? Do you know who I am? How can you be doubting my ability, my power, the daily miracles? My miracles have been going through all over this place. And you're doubting me? Like, will I? Can I? And so Jesus challenges the Father's faith. Verse 23, he goes, if you can, Jesus said, he goes, everything is possible for one who believes. Jesus had been talking about faith throughout the book. You would hear, if you read back, it's a lot about his faith. But I believe that this moment right here, this is not about him talking, but he's making it a mandate of faith. It's not an issue of power. It's an issue of accessing that power that comes by faith. Jesus healed many people with no faith. Faith wasn't always an issue. And all this time, it was okay. But Jesus wanted to teach his disciples and us today to go, you know what? You need to have faith to access power. The father responds in verse 24. Immediately, the boy's father cried out. So much emotion here, actually, like when he cries out. The Greek actually describes it as a crow calls out. That's how he was calling out from the bowels. And remember, while this is going on, his son is rolling on the ground. So you're trying to have a conversation. It's like having a toddler. You're having a conversation, you see your toddler rolling. And you're like, where do I go? Do I go? You know, it's one of those. But in this case, this kid is almost dying. And so he's having this moment. And he goes, all things are possible to the one who believes. And he's like, how is that? How much faith do I need? And so and he goes, how do I get this? And when we're talking about all things possible to the one who believes, this is not Ferraris, okay? This is all things within God's will are possible. All things that are acceptable to God are possible. But how much faith do you really need? What do you mean all things are possible? How am I supposed to do this, God? How can I, what are you talking about, belief? And so, but then he goes, I don't care. I'm going to do what I can. And he gets so desperate and he goes, you know what? I believe, but help my unbelief. What does that mean? It means I believe. I take my doubts. I take my moments, because God will never have a perfect faith from us. He can't expect that. We're so pitiful. We always have a mixed doubt in there. But when we take what we have, which is the faith of a mustard seed, that means even with our doubts, even with our moments of fear and all of that agony, and you take it to God and you go, God, this is all I can muster. Here's my faith. That is the kind of faith that God is looking for. So the crowd starts increasing, and Jesus starts acting quickly. And verse 25, when Jesus saw that the crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. You deaf and mute spirit, he said, I command you to come out of him and never enter him. And the demon struck him again, and he fell down, and the demon left. But Jesus gave him back. In Luke, it actually says this. Jesus gave him back to the Father. Jesus is able. He's more than willing. If we would just muster up our faith and lift our prayers unto him consistently, he's the God who restores. I believe, God, help my unbelief. That's the key. You don't need perfect faith. You don't need that everything to bring to Jesus. You just go, God, this is my doubts. This is everything I fear. This is my unbelief. Bring it all to him, because bring your brokenness, your mess, bring your weakness, because he can handle it. We can't win this war on our own, in our own self-confidence. We need to have Jesus. We fight with prayer. You bring what you have to God, and he'll do what only he can do. Verse 28, after Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, why couldn't we drive it out? He replied, this kind can only happen with prayer. We don't know where he was, but in what house he was in, but we know he was in a house in Caesarea Philippi. Somewhere in a house, and they're having a private time, and the disciples are like, tell me, why couldn't I do it this time? We did it before. What does that mean? They had tried. They had tried with all their might, but they hadn't been empowered by praying and knowing that they have access. And he said to them, this cannot come out by anything but prayer. This kind. Greek word is genos, the species, this kind of spirit. This means anything that's unclean spirit. So what this kind means, anything that is fallen, that is following the fallen angels, so any demons. You will never be able to command these, even though God has given you authority, by yourself. You do it with prayer. Prayer is the highway that faith takes into the power of God. Prayer is the highway that faith takes into the power of God. St. Augustine said this, pray as though everything depended on God, and work as though everything depends on you. Jesus said, truly I say to you, if your faith is the size of a mustard seed, you'll say to the mountain, move from here and there, it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. Is he talking about real mountains? No. He's simply saying life is full of insurmountable things, and you will never have the power to alter those things on your own powers, but by him. You need to exercise only the simplest faith. That's the grace of God. But persistently. We always lose the persistently. You have not because you what? Ask not. If you have the faith of a grain of a mustard seed, and you take that faith on the highway of prayer into the highway of God, you will see God do mighty things. Even when we fail, Jesus remains the ultimate authority, and our dependence on him is crucial. Our family depends on it. So here are my points. It's very simple. Believe, pray boldly, and consistently access the power that God has given you. If you take nothing else today, that's what I want you to understand. Believe, pray boldly, and consistently, and access the power. Believe. Maybe you're suffering with your belief this morning. God can do it for them. God can do it for her. I don't know if he can do it for me. How many have ever been there? Where your faith has been so good for everybody else. Hey, yeah, God can heal that cancer. God can do that for that person. But he can't fix my marriage. That's not possible. My child will never, ever get to know about Jesus because he won't do it for my family, but he'll do it for everybody else. Where's your beliefs this morning? It's time to dispel the fears, disarm the enemy's hold. It takes only a little bit of faith. I want you to bow your heads, and I want you to think through, what is it that you have been struggling to believe for? What have you been facing? Difficult situations with work? Are you dealing with difficult situations with your children? Kids who are lost and you're going, man, if God, I don't know if this is even possible. What if? That is what I hear. Disarm the enemy's hold this morning. Take back, believe, faith, have faith. It's not a perfect faith. Take your doubts, take your fears. And with that, I want you to pray boldly. You see, God is doing something that you don't know about, but you have to ask. And you have to call unto the Lord and see how God made it. God wants you to go through this because God made you to partner with Him in prayer. I believe that this is a time for the church to begin to pray. How long are we going to battle on our own strength? Because we will fail. We need the power of God. We need the power of God in our families, in our children's, in our marriages, in our work areas, for our co-workers, for our families, for our uncles and aunts and nieces and nephews. There is a warfare going, and what are we doing about it? Are we going to stand there and complain and complain? No, we're going to take it to the Lord and say, God, because your word says so, my household will be saved. God, because you said so, God, I know that you're going to turn my niece's life around, my nephew's life around. My children are going to come back to you, God. I know because there is a call. You have not left me. I'm not abandoned. Pray boldly. Don't whisper. Don't say, dear Jesus, help me. No, you be roaring as a lion and you tell God and say, God, I'm crying out to you. From the bowels, God, I'm crying out to you. Pray boldly. The disciples were powerless in that moment because they had failed to tap into the one source of power that could change everything. Prayer. When was the last time you prayed with everything you had? When was the last time you sought God with all your heart and all your strength and all your mind? Prayer. And then you access the power. Some of you are praying and whining and crying, asking God for something over and over and over. And He's like, I've already given it to you. I'm not withholding it. Deal with it. Rebuke it. Rebuke the enemy in Jesus' name. We need to stop begging God, and we need to start taking authority that He's already given us and start saying, the devil has no hold on my children. The devil has no hold on my marriage. The devil has no hold on my finances and my business. Nothing can withstand me because the power of God is within me. Come on and wield that power. God has given it to you. Too much of wimpiness, and we need to just start straighten up our vertebrae and saying, dear God, I am standing in the power of God. He has given you the access. Prayer is the key that unlocks God's power in our lives. And we face oppositions. When we face the enemy, it's not our confidence or our ability that wins the battle. It's our dependence on God. The enemy can't stand against the power of God when you're in prayer. So I'm going to give you a few moments. I believe that God has been working in our hearts. He's been speaking fierce and powerful promises with fragile paper for many, from generation to generation. And every generation has wielded that power. It's time that we do too. So take a moment and pray. I'm going to give you a minute, but I want you to respond to God. God, we give you everything, our fear,